This is a short video on getting a handle on cups. Okay, I know some of you missed this part, so I'm going to reiterate it via this video. Remember that idea of the handle starting out with a pug of clay that's well wedged and squishing out sort of a tongue shape like that first, and then it's into that rhythm after you've gotten it wet. So get it wet, and then I say to do it over the sink so you don't make a mess, and go 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2, and then the 1 2 is because if I just do it one way, that shape makes it start curving. I want to make it go straight, so I'm going to go 1 2 1 1 1, and then that thickness here is something to pay attention to. The width of the handle, try and make it about 1 inch or so it's wide enough that it's comfortable when you put your hand in. And then when you're ready to thin out the edges, you don't want to thin them out too much, but you run your thumb down the front of the handle and you start thinning out this part right here, so this area here isn't so thick. So I'm doing that. I'm gonna run through it 1 2 1 2 1 2, and then do the middle, do the edges, and that's how you make this kind of handle. Of course, I'm gonna go over some other handles with you also. I like to lay them on a board, and again, cutting them off is what you want to do. Is cut them off that pug on the board, and you want maybe 1 inch or so more than you really need for the handle. So for these cups, maybe a 5-inch long, 6-inch long handle, then you can cut 1 inch off of both sides so it's nice fresh clay. What I suggest is, it's on that board for about maybe a half hour before you do this, but I can handle it and get it into a nice curve right away. So I'm going to put it in this curve, and if I want more of a rough curve, I can do that now too. And then I'm going to lay it on its side like this and leave them on the board. If you've got 5 cups or 10 cups, then make 1 or 2 more handles than you really need. Now, when we go to the application of it, it's all dependent on the thickness, how long you left them out to get to a certain point. But you don't want those handles to be really dry, because you want to be able to push them onto the cup. You want the cup to be somewhat flexible, but not too flexible, and you want the cup and the lip of the cup to be more like this, where if I push on it, it's not going to change the circle or whatever shape that cup is. So I want to be able to score on it too, so it needs to be at a leather hard stage. So I'm going to decide where it goes off the cup, and then down here, quite often it's too wet down here, so you might just flip them over and leave them like that till this part gets good enough that when I push the handle on there. And I want the handle to be some kind of clay like this, where when I push it onto the cup, it's going to move. I don't want the handle to be as hard as the cup, so just softer than the cup. So after I've laid it out and thought about those handles, I'm going to look at how to apply it. There's different ways you think about coming off the lip. I'm going to put this one off of the body and have it come back down to the bottom of the cup. But if you put it off the lip, it would be a different kind of attachment, and I'll cover that later. I'm going to go ahead and think about where I cut it, and this area is going to be scored right here, and then down here I want to cut some off so I have fresh clay on the bottom where it attaches to. So I'm going to think about how many fingers go in that handle. I'm going to lay that cup on its side, figure out where I want to put it on the cup, looking at keeping it straight like that, but also looking at that negative space between the cup and the handle. So it means I got to score on the cup here, score on the cup here, and score on the handle there and there. So that's what I'm going to do now. First I'll score on the cup. So put the cup down in my lap, see this? Camera a little closer here. Put the cup down on my lap, and I'm gonna mark exactly where I want to score, so I don't have a bunch of cleanup. I'm gonna put the handle aside. Again, this handle is still wet. I don't wanna beat it up. I'm gonna take my scoring tool or my needle tool, gouge into that area where that is going to be, and really open up that surface, bring it back to life, and get it ready for the handle. So I add a little slip there. So I'm gonna add a little slip to it. And then I got these scoring lines all slipped up and ready for the handle. What I like to do is to really clean that up before I put the handle on, so I don't have to do a lot of cleanup after the handle's on. And I'm going to do the same thing to the handle where I want it attached to the cup. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to score down here, get some slip on there. Now I'm going to put it back in that place. I'm going to push gently onto the cup, make sure that I'm not concaving the cup. And I'm going to push gently down on the bottom. And that's kind of a good start to the attachment. Now I'm going to work a little more with some finesse there and some here, and then I'll have this handle on the cup. So I'll work that more. Now that's one kind of handle. Now there's different ways to think about how the handle flows out of the cup and then back into the cup. So these kind of attachments are actually melded in more, and we'll cover that later. Coming off the lip or melded into the body. I'm going to cover how a handle would come off the lip, and when I cut this, I got to think, is it going to spring up off the lip, come straight off the lip, or spring downward off the lip? And then that angle that I cut is either going to be straight or on an angle like this, or on an angle like this. If it's on an angle like that, then it springs up. If it's on an angle like that, then it springs down. If it's straight, it comes straight off the cup. I'm just going to make it come straight off the lip. But I'm also going to think about the curve of the cup, so I'm actually cutting the curvature on it so it kind of matches up with the cup. I'm going to place it on there and think about that curve, see what I mean? And I'm going to think about how much of the handle I want. So again, thinking about 1.5 inches or 2, depending on how much you leave extra on that handle. That seems to be springing off there quite a bit, and maybe I would cut just a little more off there. So I'm going to score and slip just like the last one, and then put this handle in place there. All right. I'm going to briefly go over how to lug a handle. Okay, off the lip, as you see, like it can flow off of there a little bit differently, and then I'm thinking about this area here. You can think about lugging, and I'm going to show you this technique of lugging, where I've already scored and slipped. I'm going to take a piece of clay, I'm going to pinch it into kind of a point like that, so it's more triangulated, and I'm going to put it in there, and I'm going to move it up onto the handle and move it onto the piece, and that just thickens that attachment and gets it to look like it's kind of coming out of the piece more. So first laying it in there, and again that is scored and slipped in there, and then I'm going to take on my side, I'm going to take my finger and swoosh, and then on this side you can see how it's kind of now melded a little, and then I'll work this joint here and I'll work this joint here. Okay, so now you see how it's like thicker when it comes in there and it's more flowing onto the piece, and that it's just a different way to think about that attachment. And sometimes it's nicer because the way a glaze can pool in there, the comfort zone of this area here, instead of like a real sharp area, could be a place where when I'm holding it, that's where my other finger is lying. So that curve is kind of nicer than a crotch.